Hi everyone, this is Tish Aitken, and I'm here to discuss this week's happenings. My cat just chimed in. And we are definitely in full Scorpio season. We've got Mercury just retrograded on Halloween at, what degree did it retrograde at? It retrograded at 27 degrees, that's right. It retrograded at 27 degrees of Scorpio. And that again goes back to when we were in the summer of 2015, when Saturn, which is where we learn karmic lessons and have restructuring in our lives and where we have to, grow and mature. Saturn was in the late degrees of Scorpio in the summer of 2015 and exited on September 18th of 2015. So Mercury is speaking back to that story. And it also retrograded with Venus, which is a benefic. It's a lucky planet. Now, it was in Scorpio, which is a difficult placement. That is, it's in its detriment in Scorpio, and it can be a painful placement. But I think with Mercury in Scorpio, whether or not it's retrograde, is very much a time of digging deeply into things, into matters, figuring out where your wounds are unhealed, figuring out things that you need to purge and release in your life and what you need to transform. And Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, and again is one of the key players that sets the tone for 2020, because Saturn and Pluto will be conjunct on January 12th at 22 degrees of Capricorn. So we have one of the key players, Pluto, ruling Scorpio, Mercury being retrograde in Scorpio for the entirety of this retrograde, because it doesn't go direct until November 20th, when it goes direct at 11 degrees of Scorpio. And that then defers back to last fall when Venus retrograded at 11 degrees of Scorpio. So we're thinking about, all of us are really, being asked to examine what is working in your life, what needs to be purged, what do you need to release. And I think with Mercury and Venus, they're generally quite in harmony together. They're both, fun planets together. They can be sociable, although in Scorpio, the tone is a little different. And I think it's really figuring out, are you valuing yourself in a proper way? Are you being valued or devalued by your relationships and people with whom you're dealing and projects you're pursuing? And are you treating others with respect and valuing them? And I think upgrading your game, because with Mercury and Scorpio, you're going to get a lot of answers. You're going to get a lot of secrets revealed during this time, particularly because it is retrograde, and that goes inwards. And you might find out things about yourself that maybe you haven't been entirely honest with yourself about, that you're really going to have to examine. And the more you work with this, the more you work with courage on this, the more you'll accomplish in 2020. Because the whole idea with Saturn and Pluto is not to be fearful. I mean, it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. They haven't met up since the fall of 1982, at 26 degrees of Libra. But it's more about, what do you want to up level in your life? And Pluto is about empowerment, and Saturn is about building structure and foundation. There are going to be structures collapsing. Pluto does end things, but there are going to be things you're building, and that's what you want to work on. So it's acting with integrity, because these planets are going to be in Capricorn, and that is the sign that rules karma. So treating others with respect, also treating yourself with respect. Now, Venus entered Sagittarius on November 1st. So that does give more levity. It's a lot more playful and fun-loving in the sign of Sagittarius. And we have Jupiter is in Sagittarius for one more month. It's going to exit Sagittarius on December 3rd, and that's the sign it rules. So we have Jupiter in its home sign for one more month, and it actually clears its shadow now, because it's going to get to 24 degrees of Sagittarius, and that's where it's stationed retrograde in April. So we're now getting it to the end of Jupiter and Sag, and trying to make the most of that, because that's what you want to magnetize in your life. That's what you want to expand, and that's tapping into hope, because we do really, it's been a very tough year, no question, but we've got 3 planets in their home signs. We've got Saturn in Capricorn, the sign it rules. We've got Neptune in Pisces, the sign it rules, and Jupiter in Sagittarius. And that means they work more effectively when they're in the sign in which they rule. So, you know, looking inwards definitely in the next few weeks, but also figuring out what you want to attract in your life, and more doors could open with Jupiter now, you know, passing its shadow and you know, getting to the last degrees of Sag. And Venus and Jupiter will meet up in Sagittarius on November 24th, and that will be a lovely pairing. And then we have the new moon on the 26th of November, so that's going to be the last time that Jupiter and the moon will meet up in Sag, and having it be the annual new moon in Sagittarius. But getting back to the story now, Scorpio is very much about being brutally honest about what is toxic in your life and releasing that, and really, you know, figuring out. It can be, for a lot of people have said to me, they've had a lot of feeling a bit, you know, downtrodden, feeling a little bit depressed, having a lot of memories of the past come up. People from the past come up in their dreams, in their memories. But really, it's also, it doesn't have to be all negative. It's about figuring out times, though, that, you know, you can do it differently this time, that you don't have to replay that story. And this week we actually have some very nice aspects, because the Sun in Scorpio is going to form a trine to the North Node of Destiny on Friday, November 8th. And that can be very good for bringing in good karma, forming good connections. The Sun is going to sextile Saturn that day, and that's a stabilizing influence. Neptune and Saturn will sextile one another for the last time this year, and Neptune is the dream and Saturn is the structure. So structuring the dream, there are a lot of harmonious influences. And the next day, Mercury in Scorpio is going to form an enabling aspect to Pluto, which rules Scorpio, and that can be really getting to the bottom of things, getting a lot of information. So it's interesting. The other day I saw this video came up of this man in Ireland. It was his funeral, and I guess he had pre-recorded something that when they were burying him, he was saying, "What are you doing?" And, you know, it was a joke and everything. But the idea is, in a sense, it's kind of realizing that these sad passages of life are very much the Scorpio story. It's a reality with which we all deal, but I guess having a sense of humor, because there's nothing we can do about it. There's nothing we can do about endings and change. That's a constant. We're all going to die at some point. Things are going to end in different areas of our lives. Things will change. They'll morph into other things. And when I was a kid, my dad used to really annoy me when I'd pass a cemetery. He used to always say, "How many people do you think are dead in there?" And I heard that for many years in my life. But you know, in a sense, you can be melancholic about it, and it is very sad, and these life rituals and passages are sad, and we're all going to be facing that very strongly right now. But you have to also look at the humor of life, and maybe with now Jupiter at the end of Sagittarius and Venus transiting in Sag, is having a sense of humor of all this scorpionic, plutonic, Pluto-oriented energy that we're dealing with, because we are going through a lot of release, a lot of shifts. In the beginning of January, we're going to have a lunar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer. That's going to occur on January 10th, 2 days before the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. We're going to have the Sun in Capricorn. Mercury is going to be at 23 Capricorn. Pluto and Saturn are going to be at 22 Capricorn. There's going to be a lot of Capricorn energy, and very much a restructuring, because anything at 22 degrees of the cardinal signs is the world axis, which means that it's far more potent, it's felt on a much more global level, and it impacts people more powerfully. So I think you want to do some deep thinking this next few weeks. Mercury goes direct on November 20th, and examine what you want in your life, what you need to work on. Be honest with yourself. If you feel a little depressed, that's okay, and then go forward and try to find ways to, to fix that, to try to, work on that, and be patient with yourself and kind with yourself, but also try to find a little humor, like that guy in Ireland that had the last laugh. So I wish you a lot of luck, and take care. Thank you.